What's up, guys? Welcome back to the ProMG Money channel, back again with another video. And again, we are starting, I don't want to call it a series, but a series on property basically, where I'm going to take you guys through my property journey and show you just the different things I'm doing to try and get into, not even get into, but to do well in the property game. As I've always said, this channel is about making money in legitimate, consistent ways that anyone can do or replicate. The focus generally is on investing in the stock market. I think that is the best and the number one way that we're going to go about doing this, because with that, you don't need huge sums of money to get into it. You can literally start with 50 Rand or so and get into the investing game. But today we're going to be speaking about property, which is a little bit more serious, which is a little bit more I want to say harder to get into versus some of the other things that we're going to be dealing with on the channel. As I said, investing from 50 Rand, you can get started. Cryptocurrency, the barrier to entry is actually not that high. But I will say with property, it definitely is a whole lot more trickier. And anyone who says to you that you can get into property with 0 Rand down is, I don't want to say that they're lying, but they're not telling you the full truth. Property is generally quite hard to get into, and you really need money to get into property. But basically, let me tell you guys my story with property and how we have got to where I am. When I left high school, I went to varsity just like anyone else, but after a year I found out that really this thing wasn't for me, and I got started working, and with that I met a mentor, which is, I think, one of the very most important things about property, is having a mentor, having someone who can hold your hand and guide you throughout this process, because there's a lot of people who are willing or waiting to rip you off and take whatever little money you have. So having a mentor is a key thing, but we'll get into some of the tips maybe in future videos. But basically, I had a mentor who was basically into property as well. He basically was buying properties from auction, getting bank repossessed properties, evicting the people, fixing up what he needed to fix up, and then selling it on for a profit. So he kind of took me under his wing. He started taking me to auctions. He started showing me the ins and outs of his business and what he does. And I won't lie, during that time, I was really intrigued and interested in that part of the property market or sector. I thought, this is actually what I want to do, and I guess part of me still does want to do that, but it's very nuanced. The problem with auctions, or the thing about auctions, is that it is not up to you what price you pay. It's not like it's you and another person and you can have a sort of take it or leave it kind of argument. With auctions, there are a lot of things that are at play, and maybe one day I'll go into the video about the Johannesburg South auction. Sort of, I don't want to call it the corruption, but sort of the underhandedness that goes on there, because it was really interesting. I made a decent amount of money just from going and attending the auctions, which is great for me, but it's not so nice for people who are legitimately trying to do this as a career, because you end up losing money because of other people's greed. But that's maybe a video for the future. But yeah, basically, for a few years, we were doing that together with this mentor of mine. He was taking me to auctions. I was going, learning. I was being introduced to a lot of people, which is quite important. Networking is always good. And, throughout that whole experience, I came close to actually buying a property, through the auction. But I think all of the bureaucracy and all of the, shenanigans that go on there kind of just caused me to pull out, and I didn't really go through with that. So yeah, basically following that, I kind of stopped going to auctions as well. The sheriff not closed down, but he moved, and the state of auctions kind of changed, and I kind of pulled back a little bit from going and attending these auctions, which I'm a bit sad about. But I think definitely in the future we do need to go back to sheriff's auctions. But basically that's how I started out in property, and then from that I would continue to have an interest in property. I'm one of those people who are always on property 24. I think most of us are always looking at different houses to see what you can or can't do, the different strategies that you can go about doing with property. Here on YouTube, I've watched almost anyone who's worth watching. Graham Stephan, I've watched basically everything that he had ever had to say about property. There's the Bigger Pockets guy, I forget his name, but him as well. I've gone over quite a few of their videos. He's actually got a lot, and I think he's actually a very good authority or a good person to look over, when it comes to the property game in South Africa. Not South Africa, sorry, property game overall. He doesn't really focus on South Africa. In South Africa, I've looked at, I think it's called M5 Property or whatever. I've not properly applied my mind to them or thought about what it is that they're doing or looked at it. On the one hand, I think the property part is actually quite solid. I think it's just their investing portion where I'm not too keen on that, where you give them a certain amount of money and I guess it's the normal property deals that people do. It's just that the manner in which they're doing it is sort of more crowdfunding than going to approaching an individual investor, which is great. But yeah, I've actually not actually properly sat down and looked at M5 property properly to have a full conclusion on it. But I'm not saying throw them out or that they're good or great. I'm just saying yeah. But anyway, and as well, the current place where really I'm getting quite a lot of knowledge from is another guy called Lawrence Bull, I think he is. He's an author and he owns quite a few properties. He's one of the people that I track quite carefully, in South Africa when it comes to property. And yeah, I'll definitely have more videos on him and how he does his things and so on and so forth. So look forward to that in the future. But what we're basically gonna, next go over is my specific property buying journey, because I do have a property in my name that I'm currently renting out, and how I went about getting that property. Now, the first thing that I will say is that I have a lot of knowledge, like I've said, from watching all of these YouTube videos, from working, maybe not working, but attending the auctions and working with my mentor. I know what's good or bad, or what looks wrong or what looks right in property. I have an idea of what's a good deal, what's a bad deal, and what makes sense. And I think the number one thing that, I want people to know and take away from property is that it should never take money out of your pocket every month. A thing I always hear people say is that, no, in the first few years, when you'll be paying a little bit into it, but then after that, it will start paying you. I think the principle, I get you that over time you'll eventually own the asset, and it's better that your money goes there than to other things. If that's the way in which you're looking at it, great, 100% I agree with you. But a property, if you're buying it for an asset or as an asset, should be taking money and putting it into your pocket. It shouldn't be taking money out. That is a liability, my friends. I want to tell you that now. And don't sit back and say then that there's no way to get into property, because everything that's in property currently is a liability. Let's just get into how I bought my property. So basically what I wanted to do was identify kind of an area that I felt was good, that was maybe not going to appreciate in capital too much, but where I was going to get good solid rentals, where there's always a tenant waiting to come. So basically I'm looking for a place where rental demand is up here, but the supply is a bit lower than that, because that's kind of the sweet spot for the type of property investing I was doing. Basically I do the buy to let strategy, if you're familiar with what that is. So there's a complex in Midrand that is quite popular, and a friend of mine stayed there, and every time I'd come in, there's always a whole lot of cars outside, people trying to get into the complex, like nyana. So, and I was like, what, this is actually a good place to maybe get invested in, because if it's always busy like this, it means that people really want to rent and people really want to live here. And plus, Waterfall is like a stone throw away. So if you're one of those people who think Waterfall is going to be the next big place, which I at the time kind of did, I felt it was a really good place to get an investment in. So basically I looked at this complex and I started going on to Property 24 and finding different properties for sale. And with that, in these complexes you'll get different types of units. There's 1 bedroom, 2 bed, 1 bath, 2 bed, 2 bath, and 3 bed, and I kind of felt like the sweet spot is the 2 bed, 1 bath, because you can get 2 people who are sharing and they'll kind of live in that space and sort of take care of it together. So that's the sweet spot that I decided on. And I started looking at the individual price of 2 bed, 1 baths in that complex. And if I'm honest with you, the price that it was versus what it was going to cost to run and maintain the place didn't really make sense, in that the purchase price was a bit too high for the bond repayment and the levies and all of that, but we'll get into those things in later videos. But basically the numbers didn't make sense, but what I did was I came up with a price at which the numbers would make sense. So if I put in this offer price and that together with the bond and the expenses and the rent would be able to cover one another, I came up with that price, which at the time I think was quite a low ball offer, but it's a reasonable price where, you know, if someone who's been in that area for a long period of time would have made their money through capital appreciation, and we can both sort of walk away happy. The problem is that most people don't really want to hear or know that. You know, you're kind of set on your price. It's a take it or leave it type situation. That's what most sellers do, which works for them. But I think as a buyer, you also need to have the same approach where you go into these things, take it or leave it. So basically, I'd set my price. I knew that the bank was going to give me a loan for X amount of money. I was going to need to put up this amount of money to start up. And the rentals, I had an idea of what I could get for the rentals, and basically that's what I did. So I went around messaging each and every agent who was selling a unit in that complex and said to them, listen, this is my price that I'm willing to go in at here. If the owner is willing to listen to something like this, then I can maybe start the conversation with you, and or we can look at it. But if the owner is not going to listen to me at this price, then let's leave it. Let's not even, you know, take this conversation any further. And as it was, most agents pretty much said, yeah, the owner's not going to listen to that offer. Pretty much all of the agents actually said the owner's not going to listen to that offer, which they're well within their rights to do. It was quite a low ball offer, but fortunately, eventually I found one owner who was willing to listen to me at that specific offer price, and we didn't even do any negotiation. I said, this is the price, take it or leave it. And he said, okay, cool, come see the place. I went, I saw the place, it had tenants, it was good, worked for me, and as they say, the rest is history. That is my property now. I own it, I have tenants there currently, and it's doing quite well for me at the moment. I'll maybe one day go over the numbers and show you guys everything, but basically this is the start of me going over my property journey, because that is my first and only property that is in my name. Going forward, I'm now going to be buying, hopefully in the year 2022, one of the goals I have is to buy 3 more properties this year, and how I go about doing that, and yeah, basically the strategies that I'm employing, the different things that I do to, you know, look at how I'm going to get to my next investments. I'm going to be sharing that with you guys because number one, it's already here on YouTube. The things that I know, the things that I'm going to be doing are things that already exist on YouTube. There are many people who are doing it and showing you how to do it. I'm also going to be one of those people, and hopefully in that you will be able to learn, you know, a few things about the property game as I have done. You'll be able to see that it is possible. It's not easy. The barrier to entry, like I said, is quite high. You know, some people will tell you that upfront there's quite a lot of cost when it comes to, you know, buying property. Dealing with a bank is a whole thing on its own as well, because you need to have your wits about that as well. And yeah, basically this is the start of our property journey, and that is my little story on property so far, and taking you guys on the steps that follow that. So when I do speak about property, it's not just me from an armchair saying do this, do that, do that. I actually have skin in the game. I do have a property that I'm renting out, and the plan is to buy a whole lot more of that and take you guys along for the journey with me. So I hope this content is helpful and is relevant to someone out there. I know that I'm not really niching into one specific part. I'm really speaking about different ways of making money, but like I said, it's legitimate, consistent ways of making money that I'm looking at, and hopefully this will add value to someone, and that you know, enjoy this upcoming series or this journey that we're going to be on, because it is a lifelong journey. And yeah, that is going to be me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.